In 3, 2, 1, go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners, Commissioners Check-in for April 22nd, 2021, 10:31 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. We have Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards and Commissioner Kelly Mejia will be joining us shortly. We have County Manager Ramiro Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell on Zoom. The public, though, can follow along through our county YouTube channel, Thurston County YouTube channel, live stream, or by conference line at 360-252-9020, pin 1234. We have an hour for the check-in this morning. We will have we'll have each commissioner report on boards and commissions. We'll go one by one, each commissioner, and then item 2 is commissioner items, and we'll just go item by item around the horn as many times as we have time to do. Anything else to say before I turn the floor to Commissioner Mejia, Ramiro?
No, sir. If when it's appropriate, you can give me the opportunity to introduce an item.
Okay, you want to do that up front?
No, not necessarily right up front. Whenever you think it's appropriate.
Okay, well, let's go to do our boards and commissions report, and then we'll I'll put you first on the items after that. Commissioner Mejia, anything to report from boards and commissions this last week?
Yes. So for intercity transit, that meeting was last night, and I wanted to announce that the bicycle commute challenge starts in May. So if you want to bicycle to work, they're counting miles this year for fun, for commute. So it's going to be an exciting year this year. The theme this year, it's Bicycle for Joy. And today they have an Earth Day market ride. So if you can go to the market, to the farmer's market here in Olympia from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if you walk or bike there, they'll give you a prize. Another interesting discussion that I thought was, I was surprised it's just now coming up. It's the VAMPL is looking at having flat fees. Yesterday there was a thorough presentation, and currently people are being charged by how many riders there are and how many miles. And so this flat fee would reduce the cost for many people, and would also reduce the pressure of if someone is not able to, drops out, then they don't have to go looking for someone else without their fees going up. Thurston Thrives was this Monday, and Shelley Willis did a presentation. She's the executive director for Family Education and Support Services. And she said child abuse went up 49% from 2015 to 2019. They don't have the results yet for last year, but just seeing that it went up that much here in Thurston County, I'm a little bit scared of what the results are going to be for last year, since more people were home. Other than that,
what was the percentage?
49%. Yes, so it's very daunting, actually. And Bountiful Byway is having a virtual tour this afternoon. I have been invited to speak, so I'm very excited about that, and just the things that they're doing there. Other than that, I attended the study meeting last Friday, and there were some really great presentations, but I couldn't stay for all because of the planning session. The Regional Housing Council has started reviewing applications from the RFP. So that's going to be, we received 69 applications total. So we have our work cut out for us. And then with intercity transit, again, I went on a tour of the building that is being constructed right now. I was able to sign the beam, which was really exciting. And Representative Marilyn Strickland was there. Other than that, that is all I have to report on external boards and commissions. Thank you.
Just a
quick comment.
Yes.
On the VAMPL flat fee, that will be an awesome program. I myself was an IT VAMPL member for close to 15 to 18 years. And I know how difficult sometimes it is to recruit members because it's based on how many riders are in the van pool. And in a couple of occasions, we're running the risk of not being able to pay because if you have only three to that high dollar amount is extremely difficult. So that will be a great program. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, honestly, I had no idea that's how it was done. And it's also very complicated for staff too. They can't really tell people how much it's going to be. People can't really budget for it. So I think it's a great way forward, especially now that we're going into more of a kind of a hybrid model where some people will be working from home some days and commuting other days. It would be just nice to have that flat fee for those people.
Thank you for sharing.
Is that a proposed change, or did the board actually adopt that change?
So the board voted on it yesterday. They're looking at the timing of it.
For implementation, okay. Any other questions for Commissioner Mejia? No? Okay, Commissioner Edwards, boards and commissions.
I'll just make note that the fire commissioners and EMS, those two committees are really the only ones that I had going this week. And the topic of conversation in both of those was the issue that we put on the ballot, or that we're contemplating putting on the ballot. I think we're having well, for this August, and how to address that with volunteer groups that are not government affiliated, so that we didn't run afoul of the PDC laws. So we just have to be careful about what we say about that, from what position we hold.
Right.
So that was really the only topic of substance that I thought was worth sharing, because we're all going to be faced with that somewhere along the line. So I wouldn't doubt that it wouldn't even hurt maybe to have a little refresher from our own attorney to, you know, just say, well, be cautious about doing this or that when we're, because I think we all have our personal feelings on how we want that to go, and we just don't want to use public facilities or resources to promote something like that.
Good reminder. Yep, good. I laughed when you said about the ballot, because there's so many steps that I'm right with you in terms of, like, did we do that already, or is that?
Yes, you did. You approved that, and the next step is to actually formally file to the auditor's office, and we're working with Kurt to make sure that we don't miss the deadline for the August 3rd deadline election.
We took action at the end of the public hearing, if I remember.
That is correct. That was last week. So.
Okay, very good. Well, looking over my notes, I guess the Law and Justice Council met, and that group only meets quarterly, but the topic was almost entirely Blake, and all the different implications, and making sure our municipal partners knew kind of what the county was facing, et cetera. So that, and the board is well aware of that, so I won't belabor that. Lot had a meeting last week. A couple things that were interesting probably to the board would be, you know, even before the pandemic, Lot had struggled with the security and what's the right thing to say, like just making things clean and safe around the periphery of the you know, back when there was like multiple camps downtown before they got the mitigation side squared away, and there was issues with homeless and drug use and things. And Lot is responsible for that plaza that is in front of the Children's Museum. So anyway, it's been a lot. At a certain point, temporary fencing was put up, and that was not, you know, that's obviously not, it's expensive and not attractive in any way and not intended to be any kind of long-term solution. So finally, the leadership at Lot has decided to sort of make a permanent solution, which is a decorative fence, basically a black, very nice black rail type of a fencing to go around. It's going to be different in the back, a little cheaper and simpler, but around the front where the public facing areas, it's going to be wide open during the day, but be able to be locked up at night and be very nice. It's quite expensive, which gave the board a little bit of pause. That type of fencing is shockingly expensive, but when we balanced it out in terms of what we're paying for temporary fencing and what the long-term needs are, and Lot has money allocated for projects that it hadn't really used over the last couple of years. So there was money available to create a long-term solution. So that was approved by the board to move forward. The second thing that happened was, or that we were briefed on, was a very detailed admissions inventory. So Lot kind of wanted to dig into the climate mitigation as it relates to the operations of Lot, and kind of did a comprehensive analysis of its own emissions profile in terms of where, that way it can figure out how it can do better. Almost all of the, upwards of 94% of the emissions is from Lot is based on purchased electricity based on its operations. So that in a sense kind of limits what it can do. This relates to PSE and where we get our electricity. We need to keep pressing on PSE to green it up. And of course, the legislature took action last year on that. So, as you heard from Lot, the very next day on Thursday, the process improvements projects are going to improve that amount by about 21%. So they're just based on making more efficient processes, so it needs to use less electricity. So that's going to be about the sum total of what Lot can do up to a point. We talked about the biosolids and all of that too, but it's really a small stripe of what goes on. So anyway, that was really interesting. I have the slides if anybody's interested in it. Lastly, Commissioner Edwards and I were at BHASO. So for Commissioner Mejia's benefit, I thought one really interesting piece of news was that this Olympia Police Department had previously asked for what we call a DCR, a designated crisis responder. So essentially a crisis expert to be embedded in their police department. Well, Lacey, the news is that Lacey likes what they see from Olympia, and they're asking for, I think it's 4 of them. That's what I wrote in my notes, 4 FTEs. But Lacey is inquiring about the BHASO's ability to fund or support, basically hire, not fund, but to hire through that organization embedded social or crisis responders. And I just think that's a really good direction and very supportive. And I'm really glad the police are thinking outside the box and expanding their toolbox of who they've got right there. So I thought that was pretty exciting piece of news from that meeting. And that's my report on boards and commissions. Yeah.
Chair, could I ask you something on that? So yeah. Was that kind of so that, I mean, for the public's benefit that's watching, on the whole de-escalation issue and what we're trying to do with leads and kind of all fits together, right?
It will, I hope, really fit together. I mean, I think it's a somewhat separate, it's not part of the lead, but it could certainly work in concert with that very easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well then with boards and commissions, I'm going to then turn it to county manager, and then I'll go back to Commissioner Mejia, and we'll go item by item through commissioner items, but I'll start with Ramiro.
Yeah, thank you. And this is a suggestion to the board, and that's really on the 2 o'clock Tuesday afternoon, 2 o'clock board meetings. When you discuss any particular items, a motion is made, and the chair calls for a vote. Sometimes is the eyes gets a little bit, in unison. That is, sometimes it's difficult to catch the vote itself. The suggestion that I have is perhaps that when the chair calls for a vote, then the clerk of the board just go each commissioner by each commissioner. For instance, it will be Commissioner Mejia, and then Commissioner Mejia will exercise their vote. Commissioner Edwards will exercise the vote, and then Commissioner Messi will exercise the vote. So a little more structure on that, and I'd like to bring this as a suggestion to the board.
Sounds good to me.
Commissioner Edwards?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, you like that? Okay, Commissioner Mejia?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Will it take longer? Can we try it out to see how much longer
Yeah.
it's going to take? Does this count for the consent agendas too, by the, or just for individual items?
It's individual items, because the
Okay.
consent agenda, is usually procedural, if I may.
Okay.
Well, so I kind of have the same reaction as Commissioner Mejia. I don't want to slow meetings down. So as long as we can sort of dial it up to where I say, I'll call for the vote, and then immediately the clerk is ready to go. Commissioner Mejia?
Yep.
Aye. Commissioner Edwards? And, we go in order that we don't, it's very mechanized and efficient.
Yeah, that is the intent. As soon as the chair calls for a vote, then the clerk of the board would just go right to it. With no introductions, no nothing, just call commissioner and the vote.
Roll call vote. Yeah, I mean, like IT's been doing that during the Zoom. I assume they're still doing that, but it's been, oh no, they got rid of that. Well, good, because it was really cumbersome. Because there's 9 of us on the board, and every little thing, it was a 9-person roll call, and it really, and a lot of the stuff is routine, and it just seemed to really not be necessary. But
So no, yeah, ITA, we did that the first 3 meetings where I was in, and then after they just removed it, and I think it goes so much better.
Yeah.
But
with 3 commissioners, I think it could be fine. I don't think that we'd have that problem, as long as we knew the routine.
Could I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I just wonder, we really want to make sure that the public knows what we're doing and that we get the vote right. But in about, I think more than 90% of the time, we make a unanimous vote. And is this worth maybe, because the chair oftentimes says the vote's unanimous. So that's pretty obvious. That one's pretty quick. But sometimes we're making a statement about, well, I agree or I disagree for whatever reason. And it's pretty well known. I mean, I'm trying to look at Commissioner Mejia's position of, is it going to hold us up? If 90% of the time the chair said that's a unanimous vote, 3-0 or whatever, however you want to do that. And then, because we kind of know how we're voting on those.
Commissioner, when I first heard the idea, that was my immediate response, was that I usually say it, but I could make it a rule. I could say it, I could make it an absolute, if Amy's struggling, I could absolutely, as a matter of course, say motion passes unanimously or motion passes 2-1, and I could make sure that I always say that so that there's no ambiguity as to what the result was. That would be an alternative, but I'm not opposed to either way.
I can certainly see, though, on some cases, the public might be confused on a split vote on the 2-1, who voted for, who voted against or something,
Right.
So.
Maybe suggestion can give it a try. If it takes too long, I mean, we always come back to the normal. Just to formalize a little bit the vote may be helpful for the public, but will that work?
Good idea.
I think we should do it on the consent agenda too. It's only one vote.
Yep.
And that way it's consistency.
Yeah, consistent. We'll do that. So we'll start trying that on this coming Tuesday. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'll go back to Commissioner Mejia if you have a commissioner's item.
I do not actually.
You don't have to have one.
I do not.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, unfortunately, I do. A comment was made at our last meeting about minutes for regular meetings and what a regular meeting is. Is that a requirement? Do we have to have minutes? Does anybody know that issue? I mean, and do we have minutes at each one of those meetings? That's all. I'm just trying to get it right. I want to make sure we do everything right. We won't get scrutinized quite as much if we try to get it right, so.
So the minutes are required, and we continue to catch up with the minutes. And if any citizen has any specific request for any specific meetings and minutes, we'll produce those. What my understanding of the law is that you don't have to have those minutes within a week or 2 weeks, and that is really where we are. We continue to make an effort of putting the minutes on paper, but most of the conversation is out to the public. Is out in the public. This is a Zoom meeting, and the public can. It is already a public record, but the meeting minutes on a paper, we can always continue to improve. But answer your question, yeah, it is a requirement that we need to have those.
Okay, I guess it's a requirement even if because what we do on Zoom is on video and it is part of the public record, but that doesn't suffice having minutes, is that what I'm hearing?
You know, I can probably have a conversation with Elizabeth in terms of that because because the important, I believe, the ultimate objective is for the public to know what business you transact on a daily basis.
Sure.
I mean, that's the bottom line. That's transparency.
Yep.
And this is transparent. And the public can go and log every single Zoom meeting that you have and see where it goes verbatim. So, but let me check with Elizabeth on that.
I guess on that situation, we have to consider there are people that don't do the Zoom business, and if they wanted to see it. I just want to do it right. That's all I'm wondering about. And if we can do that a month down the road, I'm fine with that too, unless it gets asked for. You know.
And we always are responsive. If somebody wants to have actually written minutes of the meetings, we always make that a priority and make it available upon request, yes.
And I apologize. I think I cut off Commissioner Mejia.
No, I was just wondering, if it would be easier to have maybe these meetings transcribed. I mean, and then posted online. No.
That will be a lot of so the gist of the meeting minutes is to consolidate the conversation, right? And that's what gets into the difference between notes. So
I can understand why somebody, I don't know what the rule is about the necessity of having minutes in what form, but I can understand why somebody might want written minutes versus just saying, oh, well, you can watch the meeting. I mean, it takes hours to watch our meetings on a YouTube. And if I'm curious, if I'm looking for a particular issue, I may want to grab the minutes and I can scan those in literally 2 minutes and see if the issue that I care about was discussed by the board versus having to go through. There's no way to go through and scan an audio, a video on YouTube if you're looking for, when is the board going to talk about septics? You know, there's just no way. So, I mean, I get why we may need to have, I get why we may not want to just say, well, every meeting is in its entirety is on YouTube. Go find stuff. It's almost like an index for the public. But, you know, again, whether we have the bandwidth and the legal requirement and all of that to do it is something I'd like to hear more about. I mean, I think the argument is interesting, and I guess I'd like to hear Elizabeth's take that you know, if we have defined a regular meeting as all of our work sessions during the week, like this one. And so we can't have a definition of regular meeting that applies in one context, but not another context. It can't be this way for notices, but that way for meetings, unless it's spelled out, and I don't think it is. So if this is a regular, if we have minutes at all regular meetings, and this is a regular meeting, which it is by our code, then we probably should have a consistent approach for how the minutes are handled, or what we produce that's available. I see a little bit of an issue there if we're doing things different ways, but yet we're not, just define things the same for another purpose. Commissioner Edwards, are you waving your hat?
Yeah, I just doesn't always work good putting your hand up or whatever. Anyway,
I'm sorry, I don't monitor that for this meeting.
here's where I'm at on that particular issue. I agree with Commissioner Menser, but if we gauge what we do as far as responding to the public on the convenience of it, I don't know if that's going to be very good, because most all of it is inconvenient, and it's a rule. I mean, if it's a rule, I want to follow it, because the rule is there for a reason, for open government and all that, so the public can see kind of what we're doing and when we're doing it. So just like the general public, when I'm talking to them about how we do business here at the courthouse, and I tell them, well, I can't talk to Commissioner Menser about that, or I don't know what Commissioner Mejia thinks about that, because I can't ask her. And they look at you kind of like, what are you doing? You got rocks in your head? You guys are right next door to each other and everything down there. So you talk about an inconvenience. It is an inconvenience, but I do understand why the legislature put it in place. There were probably many abuses somewhere along the line. That's usually what brings about rules and laws. So I don't think it's a valid reason not to do it if it's going to create, more work or an inconvenience. I don't like that. I hate to even say that in front of staff. They're going to look at me like, well, yeah, you don't have to do it. But I do want to follow the rules, because I think if we follow the rules, we're less likely to have so much scrutiny and everything. That's all.
County Manager.
I just want to clarify. I never use the word convenience in my statement. And
more work.
and we do not do anything by convenience. What we're trying to do is meeting the intent of the law. There is a lot of work. I get it, and we need to increase the bandwidth. And related to that, we're in the process of hiring a front desk person part-time for now, to hopefully we can put that as a priority as to how we can generate meeting minutes, because it is required, but it's not required in that timely when that has to be. I think it's more about us moving the wheel to have those meeting minutes available. But again, and we always have been extremely responsive. If somebody, a member of the public who requests the minutes of the specific meeting, we make that a priority to make it available. So we'll continue to work on this process, and hopefully we can have additional help. They can also help us bridge that.
Well, let's just put that on our Elizabeth list, since we added, Commissioner Edwards added the item.
I have it.
Reminder about the ballot thing that he pointed out, and then number 2 would be just giving the board comfort that we're not, what our obligation is regarding minutes for work sessions and whatnot. And
Yep, we'll do that.
okay, all right. So I have a commissioner item, I guess. This came from the planning session, and I wanted to just bring this up because we don't have any other opportunity to do it. Commissioner Edwards, at last week's planning session, you said a couple of times that your assistant spends all of her time intervening in permit issues for citizens. And do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And we weren't really talking about that issue specifically. So I think you were making a point about trust in government, and you're talking about transportation tax, car tabs and stuff. So I really didn't react to that. But on further reflection, I'm a little concerned about it. I want to make sure that I wanted to remind you and make sure Commissioner Mejia knows that on September 29th of last year, we passed a policy that I think addresses this issue. And just, quoting from that, in that policy, it said individual commissioners are not to intervene in staff decision-making, that commissioners, staff are obligated to take guidance and direction only from county manager. Commissioners are encouraged to work directly with county manager when dealing with issues involving the departments. We respect the authority of county manager in administrative matters. There is a provision about access to information. Commissioners are allowed to make a request for information through the county manager or the department head. But if we're having intervention directly with staff, I think that we've got an issue with this policy. So I just wanted to remind you of that and maybe get your reaction to that, just so that we're all on the same page and Commissioner Mejia is on the same page as what the board passed last fall.
Oh, okay. I thought that what went along with that was that we weren't personally supposed to be intervening, but that staff, and when I say staff, our executive assistants, could do that for constituents. Now, I can't tell you exactly where I picked that up. There's a combination of things that took place in a meeting between myself and the county manager, and that was what I was trying to get at, was that we would all be trying to work together. But I realized, so I can't go over to Public Works or, across the hall and tell them what to do. That's not my role. And even when my executive assistant she doesn't go over there to tell them what to do. She goes over to, hey, what's going on this or that? I think that the county manager I would guess he would be absolutely swamped he's having a hard time staying up, I think, the way it is right now. If we were to turn everything over to him, he does get advised about a lot of these things and does help. I thought we were kind of doing it all together. I'm not trying to circumvent anything.
Okay, well, I think what you're referring to, and you're partly right and I think partly wrong, and I'll just read the part that I think is directly responsive to what you're saying. This is the access to information piece, and it says, county manager is the information liaison between commissioners and county staff. Requests for information from commissioners that is solicited because of a citizen complaint or commissioner concern will be directed to the county manager, assistant county manager, or appropriate department director via the commissioner's executive assistant. This will not preclude commissioners' requests for routine, readily available information, but ideally should be directed to the county manager or appropriate department director via the commissioner's executive assistant. So I think that's what you're getting at. And I think that your assistant going to Josh, I think, so to keep the burden off the county manager, falls within the policy, but I don't think it should really go below that, because staff, I think, needs to not feel like they're getting pressured from individual commissioners, whether it's through their assistant or not. I think that was the intent. County manager can correct me if I've got that wrong. I know we were trying to juggle 3 or 4 objectives in this policy. But I think that's maybe where we have to draw that line versus having our surrogates going directly to staff members, and whether they're being pressured or they perceive it that way, that's, I think, where we were trying to create some insulation. But I don't know.
What do you think? Maybe we should revisit that. It's been in place, 6 months now or something. So is that something we should revisit, maybe to clarify that?
Commissioner Mejia, go ahead.
So, I've been doing constituent work too, and I've been just trying to keep, on the line of this. And I just want to make sure I'm doing things correctly, and that my staff is doing things, correctly. Usually I'll send an email, or Sarah will send an email regarding, this constituent contacted us, and we'll ask for information. Is that okay to do, or do I need to do that through Ramiro? I'm pretty sure I've touched base with Ramiro on some of these issues just to give him a heads up. But I want to make sure that we're doing
I would think that the policy would say you could reach out to Josh and CC Ramiro, and Josh would make the appropriate inquiry or potentially direct Sarah to the staff member if he wants to do that. But I guess and I'm just trying to interpret what's in this policy, is that if Sarah or Thomasina or any of our assistants are directly hitting staff, and again, I use Josh because the permitting issue came up as an example. It could be any department, but that would be what we're trying to avoid.
Let me comment on one thing there. We've got some kind of a meeting that goes on Thursdays, and most of the interaction that I'm aware of goes on stemming from that meeting. And that meeting is generally with folks from across the hall, and I think Brett and Josh, and maybe somebody that's actively involved in whatever it is attends. I really don't know the answer to that because they're all being done on Zoom now. But I don't think anybody, at least I don't think we are, going straight over to some staff person and saying, hey, what's going on here? I think it always goes through Brett or Josh, I think.
Okay, well,
is that not the case?
Well, CRG is at most once a week. So I guess when you said, and it might have just been hyperbole to make a point, but when you said your assistant was spending all of her time intervening, that made me feel like it was going well beyond CRG meetings.
Well, I embellished a bit or something. Is that maybe the case? I have a tendency to do that, to make a point,
I figured, but I had to call it out.
I think that came about because the county manager and I had a discussion earlier trying to, hey, we need to do something to kind of help everybody work together, that's all. And that's kind of what I was referring to. I really do think that Amy is swamped, and that might have fit in there somewhere too. And I am concerned that we don't overdo it with anybody, to be honest with you. But I do want to help constituents when they're dealing with things. And being we're talking about that, maybe I can just expand on that just a little bit. Recently, we had an issue, and I can't tell you all the particulars because I didn't get involved in it, but a party called and what's going on here, asking about how come we were stopped from doing this particular thing. And so I believe it came up at one of those meetings and somebody's looking into it. Well, then before long, we got a letter from a prior employee that had left county employment and went into dealing with, I guess, troubleshooting for individuals that have projects over here. And that person then sent an email to me and explained the problem. And that again went back to that Thursday meeting, I'm thinking. And come to find out, the prior employee knew the rules better than a new employee apparently did. And so a citizen was being held up on their project, and that employee thought he was doing the right thing. The past employee that now has a new business of helping people get through the system pointed out, well, no, over here it says such and such that allows this to take place. So sometimes they're quite complicated. I think that one was pretty simple, and I think it got fixed in, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. I don't think that should ever happen myself, and how we get around that, I'm not exactly sure, because how can we expect brand new employees to know everything about this complicated business that we do? I do think it would help if we had a sign up over there, great big sign, how can we help? And that way it would remind everybody that's an employee that comes in, you know, as they walk by it, that's their job, to help people. And don't mistake help for, I don't want to take any shortcuts and run the sewer line into the river or anything like that. I'm just saying common sense. Oftentimes, one staff member doesn't know about something, but another does. And I would like to see the vision over there be more in tune with helping. Because that goes back to the whole trust thing and the vote and all that kind of stuff. I just think that as public employees, we should always be striving to help citizens accomplish their goals within the rules that are set in place. And if we don't know all the rules, maybe a supervisor looks at it or something, I don't know, but that citizen was held up for about 3 weeks. Finally, somebody intervened on his behalf that was a prior employee, knew the rules, and things got fixed. So
I appreciate that, and I don't have any objection to a sign like that and that kind of philosophy. That's appropriate. I think a problem like the one you described from our commissioner level should be worked through Ramiro and Josh. And you know, when there's one commissioner with very strong feelings about the workings of a department, you know, as I think, you know, it's not any mystery that that's the case. You know, I think that's why it's important to have that that sort of structure for communication, because I think it can really it can undermine what Josh is trying to accomplish. For example, if you or I or Commissioner Mejia are going to his team pushing a certain direction, even if it's just follow the code, do it right, you know, whatever. But I think that there's a structure there that we have to respect, and the commissioner's level is kind of to set policy and to work with our heads of departments and our county manager. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that through and remind. I didn't know if Caroline even knew about the policy. Frankly, it was a new thing that we did last fall. So I just want to remind everybody to take a look at it. I'll talk about it with Thomasina, make sure that we're square with that. And I don't really want to. I want to make sure that we see how it's working with everybody understanding it before we really start debating any changes to it. Not averse to changing it if we don't find it's not working right. But anyway, that's my commissioner item. Thank you for that discussion. I appreciate it.
Well, how about maybe we can look at that policy at another work session or something and have a discussion on it when we got a little time to kick it around. Because because Brett is a staff person, for an example, but does that count? I mean, he's obviously a supervisor. He's not like one of the planners, using that as a division. So I don't know, that's kind of where but we can talk about it at a later planning.
Okay,
future.
very good.
Okay.
Commissioner Mejia, anything that's come up in your head, I'll just be fair going around the horn. You don't have to. Okay, Commissioner Edwards, back to you.
Where are we at on the extending the pool license? There was something about we didn't get something right, the verbiage wasn't right, or the intent wasn't right. I'm not sure. So
Yeah,
where are we at on that?
Yeah, I've been working with the attorney, Jane Futterman, and I believe we have an ordinance that meet the intent. We'll be circulating that. I think it's in the packet. No, Emmy. We'll circulate that. So I did make sure that the ordinance is meets what I believe the intent of the majority of the Board of Health. So that ordinance is will be circulating for your signature.
I guess my concern is that if we've got people out there that are hesitant about getting a permit or license or however you want to call, I'd like to let them know that their license is going to be good until the end of the year, so that they don't have that additional expenditure and we don't have to make refunds should they choose to send it in. That's all.
Yeah, the communication is also part of that, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I'll jump in with one. At the planning session, we had, I brought up the Housing Authority and why they weren't listed as one of the boards and commissions, and I asked for follow-up. Well, Thomasina heard that and brought me the information. The Housing Authority is a commissioner-appointed spot. There are 5 members, and they get 5-year terms, and some of them have been on for frankly forever. And I would like to discuss. First of all, I'd just like to make sure that they're folded into our broader list of boards and commissions. Second, I would specifically like to discuss imposing term limits. I think 2 terms of 5 years, a 10-year appointment on the Housing Authority Board is plenty. And this is a really important issue, and I think the dynamics have changed, and the thoughts have changed, and the strategies are changing, and we need new members from time to time. I mean, every 10 years is not, I think, asking too much to have some turnover in our Housing Authority Board. So I'd like to throw that out. It doesn't have to be decided today, obviously, but I'd like to just let the board know that I'd like to discuss that at a later point.
Yeah, I'm working with Amy to have a follow-up briefing on boards and commissions. Is the Housing Authority is one that we need to follow up. Commissioner Mejia would like to have a discussion on the appointments for the Timberline Regional Library. We'll bring that as well. And also, hopefully, we can take that briefing as an opportunity to review the handbook. That was the result of the planning session as well. So we're working on that, and certainly we're going to be organizing a follow-up briefing specifically to do that. Maybe an hour or so, so it's coming.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Edwards, you had something else. We got about 10 minutes.
Yeah. When it comes to attainable housing, affordable, attainable, adequate housing so we can have affordable or attainable, I think that both of my seatmates were there when we did the joint Lacey meeting, and the mayor and I had a real quick discussion about, well, if a development's going to be annexed in anyway, why not do it right at the time? So the developer would only have to work with one government bureaucracy instead of 2. Was there any more thought from my seatmates at all on that, or has there been any communication between Josh and the folks at Lacey, or do you recall the conversation? Maybe you weren't even there for that conversation. I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure if this is what you're talking about. I've had a conversation with the mayor of Lacey about an idea he has for trying to maybe take a target area like Martin Way and work in a different way through an MOU. I touched in with Ramiro, and my meeting with Josh got pushed from last week till this Friday, and I was intending I wanted to talk to Josh about it, what kind of he thought the ins and outs of it might be before I brought it to the board, or called the mayor Lacey back about, he wanted to know what my thoughts were. I'm amenable to thinking about that, but I haven't really had the chance to talk to Josh about it. Go ahead, Ramiro.
I think what Commissioner Edwards recalled is the statement that Mayor Ryder stated, meaning that when a developer was using city services, water and sewer, and they're within their Lacey UGA, I think Lacey is requiring for that part of to be annexed. So it has to be annexed by petition of the developer. They have that already in place. I think that's what Commissioner Edwards is recalling the statement that Mayor Ryder did. They have practiced that for a couple of years. So if a development that is in the Lacey UGA that is using city services, water and sewer, certainly that developer can ask the petition to the city of Lacey to be annexed. That is open and available to everyone, I believe. So I don't think the county really doesn't have much of a role on that, other than when the petition for annexation comes, then you have the opportunity to review. And in fact, I have 2 petitions for annexation by the city of Lacey. They will be bringing this for your review this coming Tuesday. And anyway, so that's my understanding of the process. That again, the city of Lacey has, if a development who is in the UGA of Lacey is planning to use city services, water and sewer, they're requiring for that development or that developer to send a petition for annexation. That's my understanding.
I do remember that, but as you say, I didn't think that really there wasn't really a decision point for us on that.
That's what I'm aware of that process, and really the county is limited role that we can do on that. So because that is available to any developer who would like to be annexed by the city.
What do you think, Commissioner Edwards? Did you think that there was something for us to decide there?
Well, it seemed like the mayor thought there was something in the way about moving forward. And I'm not going to pretend to know enough about it to have it all figured out. That's why I was hoping, I know Josh had been on at that meeting. Again, it was a Zoom meeting, so I don't know if he heard this part of it, because this took place right towards the end of the meeting. Maybe he had left. And the mayor from Lacey, whether his person was on there and left, it was my understanding as we closed the meeting, as the mayor closed the meeting, okay, well, it sounded like our staff was going to get together and try and figure out if there was a smoother way to do this, that's all.
Right, you're absolutely correct on that, but there was, I think, the mayor was asking, it is time to renew the old agreement that we had with Lacey related to annexations as a whole. And,
Right.
and that is really what his statement was, but it's a separate issue. And he requested for, and we're going to start working to see how we can revamp the interlocal agreement that deals with annexations.
Because he was frustrated, as we know, about when the stormwater issue came up over there on the most recent annexation, that almost derailed the whole annexation, and he would like there to be some more clear, like, guidelines that that obligate the parties to work through those kind of things and not have them go sideways on a case-by-case basis. I think
it was on the heels of the annexation when the stormwater pipe came.
Right.
It took us a little while to resolve, but we were able to resolve that. I think it was on the heels of that perhaps Mayor Ryder would like to revisit updating the agreement that we have with the city of Lacey.
And he's mentioned that a few times to me, and I'm not familiar with that old agreement, so I have never really gotten.
So well, and I believe Josh is coordinating that among the many things. So.
Okay. Well, it's 11:24. We're back for 2 straight hours of budget in about 6 minutes. So let's adjourn, take a restroom break, and come back at maybe 11:35. Thank you, Robin.